It was a cold, silent night near the Arctic Circle. Snow covered everything like a white blanket. The wind howled like a wolf in the dark. Inside a small military outpost, Sergeant Jake Miller sat alone. He was on night duty. The other soldiers were asleep. The base was quiet, only the soft beeping of machines in the background. Jake took a sip of his coffee. It was bitter and cold, just like the weather outside. Suddenly, a loud boom shook the building. Jake jumped from his chair. Ground trembled. The lights flickered. Then, silence again. Jake ran outside. The freezing wind hit his face. He covered his eyes and looked up. A fireball was falling from the sky. It was fast. It was bright. And it crashed into the frozen lake just 500 meters away. Jake grabbed his rifle and flashlight. He put on his snow gear and ran toward the crash site. The snow crunched under his boots. His heart was beating fast. He didn't know what had just fallen, but he knew it wasn't normal. As he reached the lake, he saw something strange. Steam was rising from the cracked ice. A small silver ship burning, broken, was half buried in the snow. Jake moved carefully. He pointed his rifle forward. He had seen many things in war, but nothing like this. The ship made soft mechanical sounds. It was not human-made. It had smooth curves, glowing lines, and no visible doors. Then, he heard it. A voice, soft, weak. Coming from the ship, "Please, I'm freezing." Jake froze. His eyes widened. That was not a machine. That was a person. He stepped closer. Suddenly, a panel on the ship opened with a hiss. Smoke and cold. Air burst out, and then she stepped out. A woman, but not human. Her skin was pale blue, almost white. Her eyes were large and silver, glowing softly. Her hair was long and white, like snow. She wore a torn, tight suit. She was shaking, barely. Standing, her lips were purple from the cold. She looked at Jake with tired eyes. Then she spoke. "I'm freezing. Give me a blanket. And my body is yours for one night." Then she collapsed in the snow. Jake was stunned. He stood still, trying to understand. What did she just say? Was it a trap? Was she dangerous? He looked at her again. She was not moving. Her hands were turning blue. He made a choice. Jake threw his rifle on his back, took off his jacket, and wrapped it around her. She was light to light for a person. He lifted her in his arms and began running back to the base. The wind blew harder. The snow was falling faster. Jake could barely see, but he kept moving. Inside the base, he laid her on a bed in the medical room. He turned on the heaters. He covered her with every blanket he could find. He checked her pulse, was slow. Her skin was ice-cold. Suddenly, her eyes opened. She stared at the ceiling, then slowly turned her head toward Jake. "You helped me," she whispered. Jake nodded. "Who are you?" he asked. "Where are you from?" She tried to speak, but coughed instead. Jake gave her warm water. She sipped slowly. "My name is Zura," she said weakly. "I'm not from here. My ship was attacked. I crashed." Jake looked at her carefully. She was clearly alien, but she didn't seem dangerous. Before he could ask more questions, all the lights in the base flickered again. Then, the power went out, total darkness. Jake grabbed his flashlight. From the shadows, Zura said, "They followed me." Jake turned sharply. "Who? The ones who attacked my ship? They will come. They always come." Jake's stomach dropped. This night just got a lot worse. The backup lights buzzed to life. Red emergency bulbs lit the room in a soft, bloody glow. Jake stood still, heart pounding. The alien woman surlily silent under the blankets, her eyes reflecting the red light like mirrors. She whispered again, almost too soft to hear. They're near. Jake moved to the control room. He checked the security system. All cameras were offline. Radio dead. Satellite, no signal. The base was cut off, completely alone in the Arctic. He tried to call the command center. Nothing. Static. Silence. When he returned to the infirmary, Zura was sitting up now. Her eyes followed him like a cat in the dark. She looked weak, but alert? To alert, Jake asked. What are you? Why are you here? Zura didn't answer directly. She looked at the heater, then at her hands. They were shaking. Cold eats me faster than you think. This planet, ... It hates my blood. Jake handed her a cup of hot water. She stared at it, confused. He guided her hand to hold it. For a moment, there was silence. Then she said, I was a messenger. A carrier. I escaped a prison ship. They were hunting me across systems. Jake narrowed his eyes. Who's they? The hunters. Creatures made of shadow and wire. They take what they want. Planets, people, souls. Jake wanted to laugh. But something in her voice, cold, hollow, made him stop. You humans don't know how small you are. Not yet. Suddenly, a deep vibration moved through the walls, like footsteps, but outside. On the snow, Jake grabbed his rifle. Zura's head turned sharply toward the door. They've found me. He moved to the window. At first, he saw only snow. Then, a tall shape, thin, moving strangely. Almost gliding. It disappeared behind. The barracks, Jake whispered. We're not alone. Zura stood up slowly. The blankets fell. Her skin had changed now, glowing faintly. Her veins looked like glowing threads under glass. She walked toward Jake. Every step was unsteady, but filled with purpose. I need heat, not fire, not clothes. Your heat. Jake stepped back. What do you mean? Zura looked straight into his eyes. My body needs life's energy to survive the night. Without it, I will turn to crystal by morning. He stared at her. You mean, like body heat? More than that. Connection, trust. One night, I take only what I need. Jake didn't answer. Another thump shook the wall. Zura looked at the door and then at Jake again. Decide fast. If I freeze, you die with me. Jake didn't fully understand, but he had seen her crash, had carried her half-dead body. She wasn't lying. He nodded slowly. She placed her hand on his chest. Her fingers felt colder than death, but then warmth began to rise. Suddenly, Jake felt a pull, like something inside him was being touched. Not just skin, memory, emotion. He saw flashes not his own. Ships flying through pink clouds. A world with 3 suns. Zura standing in front of a massive black gate, screaming in chains. Then it stopped. Zura let go. She looked stronger now, less pale. Jake dropped to his knees, breath short. What? What was that? A glimpse, she said. Of what I ran from. A sharp bang echoed from the back door. Jake aimed his rifle. Zura moved beside him, slower now, her strength still returning. They don't kill with bullets. They erase. One touch, and you're dust. Jake had seen war, but this was something else. Why did they chase you here? He asked. She hesitated, then whispered. Because I carry something. They want something older than time. Jake felt a chill deeper than cold. Outside, the snowstorm stopped. The wind died. Total stillness. That's when Jake understood. Something worse than death had found them, and it was only midnight. The storm had stopped, but the cold had grown. Silent, not quiet, not peaceful. Dead silent, Jake stepped outside the base, rifle tight in his hands. The snow wasn't falling anymore. It's not a single gust of wind. Even the machines inside had stopped. Humming, it felt like the world had paused. He scanned the white land with night vision goggles. Nothing moved, but something was there. Watching, he turned to Zura. She stood at the doorway. Her silver eyes glowed softly. She didn't shiver. She didn't speak. "They're near," she said. "But you won't see them until they want to be seen." Jake checked the sensors on the control screen. Still offline, but one red dot blinked on the map just outside the south wall. Then another, then three. No sound, no tracks, just presence. Jake whispered. "What are they?" Closed her eyes. They were machines once. Now they're something else. They collect living code. They feed on memories. They don't kill like you do. He stared at her, "And you led them here." She opened her eyes. No apology, just fact. "If they get what's inside me, your planet will be next." Suddenly, a light flickered in the hallway behind them, then burst. Glass shattered on the floor. The base power was failing. Jake moved fast, sealing the main doors. He activated the emergency lock. Thick steel slid into place. But would that be enough? He returned to the camera feed. Only one camera was working, now the one above the south wall. And then he saw it. A tall shape, thin, almost invisible. It shimmered like heat waves on ice. Then another beside it. And another. Jake leaned closer. The screen FUZZED. One of the shapes looked straight at the camera. The feed went black. Zura spoke without turning. "They've marked this building." Jake backed away. "What do they want from you?" She slowly raised her hand. Her palm glowed faint. Blue light from inside her skin. "This, a device. Ancient, hidden inside my blood. It bends gravity, time, life. I stole it from their hive." Jake couldn't believe it. She wasn't just some lost alien. She was carrying a weapon. No, something bigger. "Can't we destroy it?" he asked. Zura shook her head. "If I die, it activates." Jake felt trapped. No help, no comes. And now these invisible monsters were crawling closer. Then, thud, the back wall shook. A dent appeared in the metal. Jake turned. "They're trying to get in." Zura walked forward. "I need your help again." He looked at her. "I already gave you warmth. Now I need your will." He blinked. "My what?" She placed 2 fingers on his forehead. A spark. His vision blurred. He saw flashes again. Her planet, destroyed cities, massive machines rising like insects. He saw his own face, but not as a soldier. As something more. She pulled her hand back. He gasped. What was that? A warning? And a gift. "I opened your mind. You can now see what's hiding." Jake turned toward the door. Through the cracks in the frozen window, he now saw them. The hunters, they were tall, over 7 feet. Black bodies made of bone and wire. They had no eyes, but they moved like they sensed thoughts. Their arms ended in blades that shimmered like glass, and they were smiling, but not with mouths. With silence. Jake had never seen monsters smile before. But these things didn't need mouths. They smiled through fear, through silence. They stood outside, still, waiting, like hunters who already knew the animal was trapped. Inside the base, Zura leaned against the wall. Her breathing was heavy again. The glow inside her veins had faded. She looked weaker. Colder. Jake sealed the final doors and locked the main power room, but he knew it wouldn't hold forever. "You said you needed my will," Jake said, keeping his rifle close. "You got it? Now tell me what that means." Zura sat down slowly. Her voice was thin, soft, but steady. "Your mind is open now. You're connected to the artifact inside me." Jake didn't like the word connected. It made him feel used. Why me? He asked. Zura looked into his eyes. Because you didn't shoot me. That choice bonded us. The artifact felt it. Jake walked away, rubbing his forehead. He could still feel the heat where she touched him. The lights flickered again. This time, they stayed off. Darkness wrapped around them like a cold blanket. A sound echoed through the hall. Metal creaking. Air bending. Like pressure was shifting inside the walls. Then, a whisper. But not from Zura. Not from Jake. It came from the walls themselves. Give us what is ours. Jake froze. Zura shut her eyes. They've entered the base, but not physically. They're inside the air. The thoughts? Jake's hands began to shake. He heard his mother's voice. Then his commander. Then someone he didn't know at Albut. They screamed his name. He shouted, "Get out of my head." Zura crawled over, weak but determined. She placed both hands on his chest. They're testing you. Don't listen. Jake shut his eyes, focused on her touch. Her warmth, the voices faded. The darkness pulled back. Zura whispered, "They can't kill me. Not until the device is separated. But they can break you." Jake stepped back, breathing hard. "Then tell me how we fight them." Zura stood slowly. Her legs trembled. "There is no weapon, only choice." Jake frowned. "What choice?" She looked straight at him. "Let me give you the device. Let me make you the keeper." He took a step back. "What does that mean?" "It will live inside your blood. Your mind will change. You'll see time like layers. But they won't be able to touch it, not if it's inside you." Jake looked at his shaking hands. "And what happens to you?" Zura was quiet for a long time. Then she said, softly, "I will stop breathing." Jake turned away. "No, we find another way." Another thud. Closer this time. The power room door bent inward slightly. The metal hissed and turned black, like it was rotting. Zura placed something small in his palm. A silver shard, glowing faint blue. "This is the core. It has already chosen you." Jake stared at it. His skin tingled. He felt time slow around him. Once it enters, you can never be normal again. The door behind them bent deeper. A long black blade pierced through, silent and deadly. Zura leaned against him, her voice. Now a whisper. "This is not about me. It's about what comes next. This planet has no shield. If they get the device, Earth is the next harvest." Jake looked into her eyes. There was no fear, only hope. That he would do what she couldn't. He closed his hand around the shard. "Then give it to me." Zura placed both hands on his face. Her forehead touched his. A soft glow passed between them. The light flowed from her body into his. Jake's veins lit up for a moment, blue lines dancing under his skin. His eyes turned. Silver. He gasped, falling to his knees. Behind them, the door burst open. The hunters entered. Zura turned, her body already fading. "Run," she said. Jake stood, breathing hard, his hands glowing. "No, I fight." Jake Miller was no longer just human. He felt it in his bones, the moment Zura touched him. The moment the shard entered his body. Something inside him changed. His heartbeat slowed, but everything else sped up. The sounds around him sharpened every drop of water, every breath in the air. He could feel the cold in the walls, the movement of the wind outside, even the intention of the creatures breaking in. He could see time. Almost the hunters were in the hallway now, tall, silent, moving like shadows with blades for hands. But Jake didn't feel fear. He felt calm. Zura collapsed behind him. Her body was glowing faintly, but her breathing was soft. She was fading. Jake stepped forward, hands open. the first. Hunter came at him fast. Too fast for a normal man. But Jake moved before it even reached him. He knew what it would do with one sharp wave of his arm. A pulse of blue light shot from his palm. The creature stopped midair. It froze, then cracked. Then shattered like glass. Jake stared at his own hands. What was that? Inside his mind, a new voice answered. Not Zura, not human, just a whisper. Keeper acknowledged. Power unlocked. Phase 1, stable. He fell to one knee. More of them were coming, 3 now, crawling along the ceiling, phasing in and out of the shadows. But now he could feel them. Not just their shapes, their patterns. Their weak points, their memories. He closed his eyes and saw their world. Dark, metallic, endless tunnels. Slaves with no voices. Machines feeding on light dot, and somewhere in the center Anne. Watching everything. Jake opened his eyes. That's what you are, he said. Collectors, parasites. He stood up, stronger now. One of the hunters lunged. Jake didn't. Move? The creature stopped midair again. Trapped in blue light, like an invisible hand was holding it still. Jake turned his wrist. The thing twisted, screamed in silence, and vanished into dust. Behind him, Zura coughed. You're becoming one with it. Faster than I did. Jake helped her sit up. Can I control it? He asked. She nodded slowly. Don't. It will control you. Another blast hit the side of the base. Walls cracked, pipes screamed. Jake looked around. His mind raced with new thoughts, salient thoughts. He saw paths of energy through the walls. He could fix the power. With his hands, he touched a broken panel. It hummed back to life. Zura gasped. You're learning fast. Jake looked at her, his voice cold. Tell me the truth. What happens if they get me now? Zura looked down. Then you become the door to their next war. Jake understood. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He was a target. He looked out the window. Dozens of hunters were surrounding the base now. But they weren't attacking. They were waiting. Jake narrowed his eyes. They want me to come out. Zura nodded. They smell the artifact in you. They know it's unstable. Jake walked to the airlock. Zura tried to stop him. You'll die. Jake turned to her. I was going to. The moment I let you in. But now, he opened the door. Snow hit his face. But the cold didn't bite him anymore. He stepped outside. The creatures formed a circle. Their heads tilted. Blades gleaming. No sound, just hunger. Jake raised his hands. They glowed brighter now, lines of power running through his skin like lightning veins. You want it? He said. Come and take it. The storm returned. The snowstorm roared like a beast. But Jake stood in the center, untouched. Around him, the creatures formed a circle. The hunters, tall, silent, bladed arms gleaming like glass. Their heads tilted in sync, as if studying him. No breath, no heartbeat, just hunger. Jake's veins glowed blue. His eyes shined like twin moons inside him. The alien core pulsed. It whispered strange things, possibilities, futures, weapons, but Jake wasn't listening to the voice anymore. He was listening to his choice. You came for the device, Jake said, his voice louder than the wind. Too late. I am the device now. One of the hunters stepped forward. It didn't walk, it glided. It raised one hand and pointed at Jake. Suddenly, all of them charged, fast, deadly. Blades first, Jake closed his eyes and let go. A shockwave burst from his body. The ground cracked. Snow exploded in every direction. 3. Hunters were vaporized instantly. The rest flew backward, crashing into the ice like broken statues. Jake fell to one knee. Blood ran from his nose. His vision blurred. The power was too much. It was growing inside him, trying to burn its way out. Inside, the base Zura felt it too. She crawled to the comms panel, sparks flying around her. Her hand trembled as she activated an old beacon. To anyone listening, this is Zura. The Keeper has awakened. Earth is no longer silent. No response. Just static. She looked toward the door. Please survive, Jake. Outside, Jake stood again. He was surrounded. The hunters were learning, moving slower, smarter now. They didn't rush. They circled, waiting for him to break. Jake breathed hard. Atave. Let's end this. He raised his hand and bent gravity. One creature lunged. Jake turned its path mid-air. It flew sideways into a metal spike. Impaled. Another tried to phase through the ground. Jake reached downward, pulled it upward instead. It screamed as it disintegrated mid-sky, but with each move, Jake burned more. The core inside him was heating, melting something human. He dropped again. Suddenly a voice, Zura's, in his mind. Jake, listen, don't fight like them. You're not a weapon, your will. That's your edge. He remembered her touch, her eyes, her escape. She didn't survive by destroying. She survived by choosing. Jake stood up, weak, but clear. He lowered his arms. I won't kill you, he said to the last hunters. They paused. He stepped forward. I'll show you what mercy looks like. The light in his chest dimmed. The power bent inward. Jake held it, controlled it. The core responded. The storm stopped. Time paused. All snow hung in the air like frozen ash. The hunters stopped moving, one by one. They turned to dust. Peacefully. Not defeated, released. Jake collapsed. The power faded. Behind him, the base door opened. Zura stepped out, wrapped in a torn coat. She ran to him, fell beside him in the snow. He looked up, barely conscious. Is it over? He asked. Zura touched his face. No, but Earth is awake now. He smiled. Tell them. I chose not to be a god. She nodded, tears glowing like starlight. I'll tell them you were human. The snow fell softly now. No storm, no screaming sky. Just silence, and a broken man lying in it. Jake Miller was dying. Not from wounds, not from fear. He was melting from the inside. The artifact had given him power, and it had taken something. In return, Zura knelt beside him. Her hands glowed faint blue, shaking. Don't speak, she whispered. Save your breath. But Jake smiled anyway. It's okay, he said. I saw everything. The stars. Your home, the eye. I saw it. All Zura looked away. The sky above them opened slightly. Thin golden lines, not clouds, not lights, something beyond. The artifact had torn open the edge of time. They had minutes. Maybe less. You don't have to die, she whispered. Jake chuckled softly. That's what I said to you. Remember? Zura leaned close, forehead against his. There's one way I take it back into me. It'll burn me. But you'll live. Jake shook his head. You escaped for a reason. You survived more than I ever did. She clenched her jaw. Then let me stay with you. If you go, I go too. Jake looked into her silver eyes. No. Someone has to remember me. Above them, the sky pulsed once. A deep hum vibrated the earth. The hive I had noticed. It was watching now. Zura looked up. Her voice changed. They're sending a signal to others. To their kind. Jake slowly sat up. Blood on his lips, snow in his hair. but power still flickered in his chest. Then let's send one back. Zura blinked. Jake, no, but he was already standing. I'll give the power back. All of it. One pulse, big enough to break their signal. Maybe even shut down the eye. Zura grabbed his hand. You won't survive that. Jake smiled again. I already did more than I thought I could. You gave me that. You gave me a choice. She didn't speak. She just nodded. They stood together, two silhouettes in the falling snow. The last light of Earth facing the sky. Jake stepped forward. He closed his eyes. The artifact inside his chest pulsed brighter now. Zura placed her hand on his back. The power flowed upward, upward, upward. Then flash, a silent explosion. Of blue and white. The sky bent, the eye cracked. Every listening ear on the hive's distant ships went silent. The signal died. The hunters froze. Across space, across other worlds, their network disconnected. And Jake, gone. Only ash where he stood. Glowing ash, dancing in the wind. Zura fell to her knees, eyes wide, heart silent. She picked up the shard that fell from his body. It no longer glowed, just silver metal. She placed it in her coat, and she walked across the snow. Across the silence, alone, but not afraid. 2 months later, somewhere in orbit, aboard a secret station, a human general looked out the window. We picked up a signal, a flash from the Arctic. Then silence. Any survivors? A young officer stepped forward. Only one. A woman said her name was Zura. She brought something. The general turned slowly. What did she bring? The officer hesitated. Hope, sir. And a warning. Later that night in the sky, a tiny spark fell. A single piece of blue light. A child saw it from their window. Look, Mama. A falling star. The mother smiled. Make a wish. The child closed their eyes, far away, in the stars. Something watched, but for now, Earth was quiet. Because one man made a choice. He didn't become a god. He became memory worth protecting.